All right. Set these sliders so that A is 1, B is 1, C is 0, and D is 0. And then below all of this, click on the graph 9. That's cosine. All right, now a cosine graph can be created using a sine graph and one transformation. So your sine graph is in blue and your cosine graph is in red. We want to do one transformation that'll take that blue graph and make it equal to the orange graph. So using these sliders, you're going to try to find, you're just going to use one of them at a time. Only one of these is going to take this graph and change it into a sine graph. And you've got to find the transformation. So is the transformation going to be a vertical squeeze or stretch? The B is a horizontal squeeze or stretch. The C is going to be sliding it right and left, and the D is sliding it up and down. Okay, find one transformation that takes the blue sine graph and turns it into the orange cosine graph. So you're going to play around with these sliders and see what it's only one transformation. So you're not doing like a horizontal stretch and then a slide up or down or anything like that. It's just one of these. So take a few minutes, play around with those and see if you can find the single transformation that takes a sine graph and turns it into a cosine graph. Corbin, what did you do? Okay, so the moving it to the left is called a phase shift. And how far did you move it? So in terms of radians, what is that? If you look up here at that table, pi over 2, right? So if you take a sine graph and you shift it pi over 2 to the left, it becomes a cosine graph. Get rid of that one. So now it's a cosine graph. So a cosine graph is really a sine graph shifted pi over 2 to the left. Now, how would you write that out? What would the equation be that would turn that? So if I wanted to shift, so what we just figured out is a sine, let's see, perform a phase shift. Okay, so we'll just write phase shift sine pi over 2 left. Okay, how would you write that out? What would that equation be? Y equals, how do I shift sine pi over 2 left? Very good. Yep, excellent. Okay, so this would become a cosine graph. All right. Okay, what could you do to a cosine graph to turn it into a sine graph? So what would we do here to turn this into a sine? So that's taking the orange graph and sliding it until it coincides with the blue graph. So how far do I have to slide it? Now it's the same as a sine graph. There's the cosine graph. Now watch how far I have to slide it. Now it's a sine graph. How far did I move it? Yeah. So this point right here, move to that point, which is how far? Yeah. But to the right. So if I did this to a cosine graph, it turns it into a sine. So if we phase shift cosine, pi over 2 right, it becomes, it's going to become a sine graph. So the two graphs are related, okay, by a simple phase shift of pi over 2. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to do